Wonder about the future and how you'll be working and learning? Welcome to You in 2042, the future of work, with your host, Danielle Wallace.
Hello and welcome to You in 2042, the future of work. Joining me today is Alaina. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm a doctor of education and human behavior, which essentially means I'm a big nerd. And I use my nerdy skills and passion helping learning business leaders and leaders of learning teams to create bespoke assessment tools that evaluate growth and performance and capability. It's often a blind spot in organizations and leadership development companies. They don't have great tools to get data on changes in performance and capability. And that data is essential for us to understand what kind of impact our investments in learning and people development are having. And so with that data and with these tools, I help leaders to understand their impact and, most importantly, to figure out where they can improve their programming to have greater impact in the future.
That is so much fun. And that, I think, helps us set forward a really cool backdrop for what the future could be. Alaina, I want to share something that you and I have shared as a thought-provoking idea. Training is extinct. You've played that to me. This is not something people in our industry want to hear, but yet it's this feeling that we have. So what are your thoughts on that idea?
Let me back up for one moment and say, if the future at this moment is 2042, is that what you said?
Yeah.
2042? I do believe that the way in which we do training and the learning and development industry will be extinct. What's interesting is that 2042 is 20-ish years from now. If I do my math correctly, while I'm a data nerd, I'm not great at mental math, especially in a live podcast conversation. That being said, I believe we're looking at about 20 years. So imagine 20 years ago, where were we? We were in the 90s, maybe in the early 2000s. And there were books that were talking about things like if learning and development didn't change, that our industry would change as we know it. We wouldn't have jobs or wouldn't have credibility. And what's happening is exactly that. Today, we are experiencing higher layoffs, maybe not higher than 20 years ago, but maybe. I don't have the data to be exact. But I do believe that 20 years from now, if things aren't changing, we will be extinct as the way in which we serve organizations now.
And this is something that's not new, but I feel like it's exacerbated because we have technology that can make laying off learning and development even easier. It feels like we have at every moment a new tech to have novices or subject matter experts create training. And within that backdrop, it gives me even further pause for thought to think, okay, what is our future then if we still have that same role, just as you mentioned with those old books where we provide training? I'm not sure how that parlays into the value that we're bringing as an industry if we keep that same course.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with the editor, one of the editors of my book. And my book is called Measurement and Evaluation on a Shoestring. So it's essentially about measuring with limited resources and being hyper strategic. And my editor asked me as we were working on the book early on, he's like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really know why we have to measure the effectiveness, the outcomes of learning, because isn't learning valuable in of itself? And I think this question is really important with this future conversation. And it's because I do believe learning and learning opportunities and development opportunities are valuable in of themselves. They don't need to have any additional outcome or return on investment, if you will. They are inherently valuable to pursue professional development, to challenge yourself, to think differently, to feel differently. There's value in that without measuring anything that comes about afterward. However, in the world of corporate, and I think there are different contexts. So if we talk corporate learning, the value of learning isn't just learning in of itself. It is to change people's performance to support the organization in achieving its strategic priorities and goals, and to create a workforce that is ready for whatever their roles and responsibilities are in the marketplace, the economy, and the time and place in which the organization is living and operating. And so learning is a means to an end. And if we aren't measuring that end or being thoughtful about what the end is, then all we have is learning at face value, which isn't sufficient enough. So that, I think, is the conundrum that we experience, is that are we operating in an organization where learning is perceived at just having face value? It makes people feel good, and therefore it makes the workforce more engaged. And there is value in that, but not enough value to pay the kind of dollars that I think are normal. And we'll see a big shift in that. So I really think the shift is learning has a deeper value. And how are we being super strategic in that value that we're delivering, and being agile in adjusting as needed to preserve and protect that value in service of our organizations? And I don't think we do that really well.
Exactly. It's as if we as an industry need to change our own mindset from moving away from us being corporate education for the value of education. No. We're in corporate and this organizational world of adults, helping them get new skills so they can perform better in their organizations. So I agree. It's not just the value that training has to, for the sake of training, or maybe to make people feel good coming together, but it's performance driven. And echoing that, I think there's lots we can do to continue to get outside of our comfort zone as an industry, to put forth the compelling performance driven business case using data, not being afraid of data, and being able to showcase that and underline our learning initiatives, our talent development initiatives with that of what the business actually cares about.
Yeah, one of the things that is critical is that we stop assuming in our operations that learning is the solution. And I don't think everyone in the learning and development industry believes that learning is the solution, but I think we're in this really interesting economic context or marketplace context where we work with learning management tools that they themselves assume that learning is a solution. So I just got back from a couple of different conferences, DevLearn, the ATD Austin annual summit. There's always a technology vendor there that's talking, and the technology vendors want to be able to prove some kind of return on investment, which means they're demonstrating that their technology tool is helping organizations solve people problems. But the way in which that learning management systems, the only way that they can solve problems is through content or learning, maybe coaching if they have that capability. But this is the problem, is that the assumption is that if there's a performance problem, we give people a learning or a content solution. And that's just not how performance works. So what I think in this extinction question is that there will be more opportunities for people in the L&D sector not to be doing content or formal training development like we've been used to, but to actually be people who figure out, how do we nurture an environment that is supportive of performance? So I think workplace environments, optimizing workplace environments to be in high support of performance based upon whatever's happening in the world, in the economy, in the unique industry. I think that's a sector of performance support. Right now, performance support is training and coaching and mentoring and content, information distribution, communication, but then also making sure that our environment actually supports the performance that we want. And that's a huge missing piece in the way that we design training and have been for a long time. We often think as an industry, we can't control these environmental factors, so we're just going to focus on what we can control, which is the content, its quality and relevancy. And we do a good job of that. But what's actually more of a determination of performance is how supportive the environment is. So I would love to see more L&D professionals thinking more critically about environmental supports and consulting organizational leaders to nurture workplace environments that are optimal for performance, and doing investigations, like talking to people about when they're highly productive, what's going on? What does their workday look like? How are they setting up their desk? How many times do they talk to their manager? Do they have a mentor? There's all these different levers we can pull to create optimal environments for people to be their best and show up their best at work. I mean, this goes down to, is childcare taken care of? This goes down to, do I have access to food, or did I forget my lunch? Or am I eating and drinking water frequently? There's all these different things. How can we make our workplaces supportive and optimal for people to do really good work? And the other piece that I haven't mentioned is the onset of artificial intelligence. And there's predictions of, in the future, maybe next year, many of us have an AI assistant as opposed to a virtual assistant that does a lot of our repetitive, boring tasks that we can delegate to technology. And we're working alongside technology to do our jobs. What does an optimal work environment look like considering those factors? I think that's the future. It's not learning and development. It's simply environmental development and nurturing optimal workplaces. That's where I think our field is going to be most useful. And what can we do today to prepare for that?
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. It's the shift that we can start to make now to move out of that training mindset and move out of the thinking of, I can't control those factors, so I will just focus on training quality, to looking at the workplace environment and the performance, like the organizational performance. So truly the human capital, the people operations, and do consulting and thinking on a more holistic basis about what's needed to help elevate that human capital, that human performance. And without being mirrored and thinking, I need to have something tangible like a training solution. Perhaps instead the solution will be, let's have a better use of our AI employees. Let's better have technology integrated to have the performance support people need when they need it. It's thinking as an industry, learning and development, much more broadly, which is uncomfortable. But we can even take these steps now. I think about my own team, and I have AI employees. I have my human employees in terms of assistance. And this blend is going to continue. And we as a profession can actually elevate our roles. We can do that. We can do that now. I'm seeing some organizations taking that step up. And a lot of it is being comfortable with the data to help us get there, and comfortable with this new world. It's this intentional discomfort, so we can embrace that agility. It's interesting to think what that road to get there might be, Alaina.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned, getting comfortable with data, and I 100% agree with you that in the learning and development sector, we come to where we are today, many of us accidentally, and some of us on purpose. And even when we get the training, that training doesn't include understanding learning data and what's good and what's not good, and getting practice and evaluation and measurement. That's not a huge focus of most formal education, master's level programs or certificate programs. They're in other really important things. But I don't think the things that we're teaching people today in certification programs and master's level programs are actually making them ready for the future of work, period. And so as opposed to focusing on learning design and optimizing retention and knowledge transfer, we really have to shift to figuring out, what does an environment look like that supports people? And so, yes, data is a big piece of that, because there's a lot of data that we can look to help us understand how is the environment being supportive and what are the things that are getting in the way. But data can't give us the complete picture. We actually have to talk to people. And I really think the world that we operate in today, people are uncomfortable having honest, uncomfortable conversations about real things, like being able to talk to somebody and say, hey, I've noticed that your performance, you used to be able to make this many calls in a day and your numbers have dropped by half in the last couple of weeks. What's going on? And for the employee to feel comfortable saying, hey, my husband just left me, or my child got into a car accident, or I'm going through menopause and my body doesn't feel like it used to feel, and I don't know how to deal with that, and it's really affecting me at work. So I think when we think about human capital, humans bring all these things to work, whether it's home or hybrid or in the office. And so we have to get comfortable and create environments where it's safe for people to clearly share what's going on with them, because that also contributes to creating an optimal workplace. So I think it's both, Danielle. It's getting comfortable with data and looking at data artifacts and making smart choices with the data we have, or recognizing our data is insufficient and we need to collect more data, but then getting comfortable and creating environments where we can have these really tough, honest conversations to help our human capital perform at its greatest. It's not just a data thing. It's an empathy, compassion, curiosity thing that we also have to integrate into creating those workplace environments. And I think that's what L&D people will be doing in the future, is a combination of that. It's nurturing human capital, using good data and honest conversations.
It's clear that this path we're on and this future world is complex with that. It's the empathy and the humanness of the workforce, which is such a key part, coupled with the data, coupled with technology, coupled with performance-driven solutions. It's fascinating to think that this is a broad skill set, as you say. This is not what those within the field learn to do. If we look now at courses for those entering this field, it's all about, okay, how does an adult learn? Okay, what are the learning objectives? It's also a lot of, if you actually look at them, it's also a lot of traditional training that's been done the same way. I mean, the modality might change. Maybe it's a microlearn, maybe it's a lecture, maybe it's a webinar, but it's also a very outdated approach. And this is all things we're comfortable with because, as you mentioned, those are things we can control as a profession. This new world you speak about, where we're nurturing the workplace environment, the environment, and people being able to have these honest conversations at work and being able to have tough conversations and being able to use the data in the right ways. This is tough. This is not where we are right now as an industry, but perhaps it can give us that glimpse to think, okay, what can I do now maybe to help me pivot to this future world? What are some things you think people could do now?
So I'm going to be transparent and model what it is I'm recommending. And in the spirit of transparency, I'll say this is what a path could look like. So for the person who has been in this industry for 20 plus years and they aren't comfortable doing things differently, which would require more critical thinking, more agility, design thinking with a research kind of mindset, but then also really leaning into communication skills where they're consultative, they're asking critical questions and not being afraid to have those conversations with peers, with supervisors, or with people that are below them. And so if any of that sounds uncomfortable, I think it's a healthy thing to recognize maybe it's time for me to retire soon. And what does retirement look like? And retirement might simply mean I'm going to move into a different sector. Retirement might mean I'm going to shut this chapter of the way that things were, and I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to become a veterinarian. And who cares if you're 40 or 60 years old? People go back to school and have new careers all the time. And so if you're someone who feels uncomfortable by the status quo significantly changing, that's okay. Think about what would it look like for me to close the chapter on this type of work and go do something else. So I think that's one pathway, is just an honest opportunity to reflect on how do I really feel about leaning into some of these new skill sets and this future workplace environment, and how do I want to be in that environment? And if I don't want to be a part of that, maybe it's time to go look elsewhere. And that's okay. It's not a negative reflection by any means, but I think that level of honesty is going to be really important so that you don't find yourself laid off and without a plan for the future. So that's one, I think, important conversation to have. The other one, there's probably two other paths. So one path is in this kind of conversation and in other conversations that are surely going to be unfolding over the next couple of months, what excites you? Are you someone like me who loves data and maybe you haven't had a chance to really lean into using data in your current job, how can you set yourself up to think about moving into a more data-oriented, research, design-oriented role? Maybe that's looking elsewhere. Maybe that's talking to somebody about changing roles in your organization. So I would say, what excites you? If you love the idea of having open, honest conversations and creating nurturing environments, what does that look like? How do you bridge the gap between the skills you have today and the skills that you imagine needing? How can you prepare for that now and think about opportunities within your current work, starting your own business perhaps, or going elsewhere? And so I think that's the next big one. What excites you about the future? And how can you get ready for some of that by keeping your eyes wide open and looking for those opportunities? And then I think the other path will be, we have no idea what's going to happen. And Danielle, you and I have nerded out for a good 30 minutes now about all the kinds of things for the future, but we also don't have a clue, truly. We can only suspect what the future looks like. And so my favorite exercise, Danielle, is to do this. What's the worst that could happen to me right now? It could be I lose my job. It could be my car dies. It could be my home burns to the ground. It could be the loss of a loved one. What's the worst that could happen to you? And then think through, well, what would I do? What would I need? And would you be prepared for the worst case scenario? And so in the face of the unknown, which I have gone through multiple pivots of work and business and relationship and family dynamics, in the face of we have no idea what's coming, what's the worst case scenario? And is there something you can do to make you feel a little bit more ready for the worst case scenario? Maybe that's just having some extra cash in the bank and going and working a job over the holidays so you can have a little bit more of a nest egg for the who knows what happens one day fund. Or maybe that's downsizing and selling your expensive car, no longer having a car payment, like whatever that is for you, to make you feel like you can handle whatever we don't know, I think would be the other thing to consider.
And I like these practical ideas. And this is all framed within a really honest conversation we've had here on You in 2042, the Future of Work podcast, where we are being much more transparent about what could happen and could not. We could be completely wrong. But I think we want to give people the space to realize, okay, things might change. Things might change a lot. It's okay to pivot out. Awesome. It's okay to pivot in and navigate through this new world of talent development. That's cool too. But it's what I like is that we're giving people that space to be thinking now, okay, how can I navigate and how can I be better prepared? So when things do change, if they change, then there is some path forward.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. And feeling like you're ready and even embracing what's the worst thing that could happen. I get on an airplane and I usually like to think about, if my plane went down, would I have any regrets? And I try to do the best I can to feel like, okay, in the face of what I don't know, I'm all right. And I think that's an honest step and action that we can all take, is having that honest conversations with ourselves, because we really don't know what's going to happen next. And that's great. That's exciting. But how do you feel a little more uncomfortable with in the face of what you don't know?
And these thus become all steps that we can take now if we want to navigate in that future, being so intentional with our discomfort to learn new things, to be more agile, and to be able to better contribute in a way that we love best. Alaina, thank you so much for such a thought-provoking, insightful conversation. This is so much fun.
You're welcome. I'm actually excited to go back and listen to other conversations you've had. I want to know what other people think about the future for us in 2042.
There's so much that could happen, and it's also amazing to see some of the similar themes. So I encourage everybody to listen to some past episodes. And Alaina, where can people learn more about you?
I am exclusively on LinkedIn. So feel free to find me, Dr. Alaina Szlachta, and you'll get my newsletter link and my website and all other fun things from there.
Highly encourage people to reach out and follow Alaina. Thank you so much for your time and awesome insights.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for being a part of the future. Subscribe now to stay current.